sorry, it's a little bit punchy, specifically at the beginning of the year.
Christine was gonna drive.
Great, welcome
Good
back to
morning.
Senate Economic Development, Housing and General Affairs. It is still the 15th, it's behind January, so just beware. And we welcome back Joan Goldstein to this committee in a very different capacity. We're excited to see you in this new capacity. Welcome as the new executive directors that you're
I guess the title is actually CEO.
CEO of the Vermont Economic Development Authority. So it's wonderful to have you.
Thank you very much,
And,
Senator Clarkson.
It's yours.
And just before I start, I'd love to introduce the members of the team for the committee. Jennifer Emmons Butler is our Chief Legal Officer. Thad Richardson is our Chief Financial Officer. And Christine Hinkle-Yanni is our Director of Communications. Just so that you get a little bit familiarity with folks, and they all have a very important role to play as we proceed with our ask. I'm not sure how much I should do a review, but I prepared a little review just so that you understand.
I think a good review and a good understanding of how you're a partner in this committee and on housing and on economic development.
Perfect.
And what your ask is.
Perfect.
And you have until about 11:20, about that
Okay.
time.
Good, I do speak fast, so slow me up if I'm speaking too fast.
11:30.
So VEDA, the Vermont Economic Development Authority, was created by the General Assembly in 1974. The mission is to contribute to Vermont's vitality, providing a broad array of financing to businesses that create jobs, farms, nonprofits, forestry businesses, so quite a wide array, quite a diverse portfolio. Since 74, we provided more than 2.8 billion in financing assistance to thousands of entrepreneurs, manufacturers, small businesses, and agricultural enterprise. Where do we get our money? Other than specific appropriations, yes, there is a presentation
at your place.
So we're not dependent upon appropriations. Having said that, there are appropriations that come about from time to time for specific programs. Last year, you might remember the Disaster Relief Fund, Loan Fund, that was an appropriation. But other than that, we go out, we borrow money from banks and also issue commercial paper, and that's how we fund ourselves. There may be federal programs that we get funding from as well, but we're not here asking for an appropriation either. We borrow money and we lend it out to fulfill the mission. The information from our fiscal year 25 report just shows a little bit about the activity during fiscal year 25. We had $61.5 million worth of loans. That's 173 loans closed. 10.7 is water, wastewater, 15 million forestry and agriculture, and 35.8 million on the commercial side. The way it breaks down is...
And that's a whole range of businesses.
Yes.
Yeah, there you have it broken down.
Yes, I have some of it broken down, not every
Small
single
business,
brand.
travel, and...
Hospitality, manufacturing, technology, but agriculture makes up a good 30% of the portfolio. So agriculture is about 70 million in the current loan portfolio, 210 on the commercial side for about 280 million. This was as of June 30th, 2025. On the agricultural side, we directly lend, meaning we are usually the only lender and therefore the senior lender. We occasionally fund projects alongside other financial institutions, but we're generally the primary lender. It includes expansions, land purchase, building, equipment purchases, working capital, housing actually for farmers and farm workers. So it's quite a broad for agriculture. Yeah. On the commercial side, we are generally with another bank. About 70% of our commercial loan portfolio is with one other lender. The other 30% primarily are the energy portfolio, the broadband portfolio, the RDC portfolio. We lend to RDCs for industrial development, as well as some small business lending that we do direct. They're typically smaller loans. We participate with just about every bank in the state. Generally, the community banks and credit unions are more users of VEDA than the larger entities. And projects have a broad array: downtown redevelopment, multi-use commercial properties, That includes some housing, but it can't be predominantly housing. Hotels, manufacturing, there's a whole wide array of commercial lending. A couple of years back, we expanded into venture capital by virtue of the state small business credit initiative. That's an example where a federal appropriation came to the state through ARPA, and the state appointed VITA the implementing entity, and VITA remember that, right? Several years back. VITA took half of it, lent it out as they normally do on the commercial side, and the other half went to venture capital firms because we really believe this money was meant to help fund entities that otherwise may not get venture capital funding because the smaller markets don't do as well as like San Francisco, Boston, New York. So we put that money to use. We appointed VITA to be the implementing entity. VITA didn't have experience on the equity side, so we selected 5 venture capital funds to invest the money.
And how's it doing?
To date, 30 investments worth more than $4.5 million have been deployed, and there's already been 2 successful exits, allowing reinvestment into the fund to help other businesses.
And what does that mean? We hope they haven't exited Vermont. We hope that
they
exited
they sold the company or, yeah. No, it's definitely, it's always a concern.
Is one of
Nonetheless, it's a healthy sign of an ecosystem where startups grow and then are able to exit, and then those founders may find another business to start. And history has shown that that is indeed true in Vermont.
And is a condition of the loan that they stay in Vermont?
Well, the VC is not a loan, it's an equity
I mean,
position.
is it condition of the investment that they stay?
No.
Or conduct primarily business in Vermont?
They have to be a business in Vermont, and 90% of the VC portfolio has to be for businesses in Vermont. That is clear. Yeah. Okay, so some recent commercial investments. I don't know if I meant to. Here are some notable.
Unwasted.
Yes, wasted.
It's a little early in the day to consider being wasted, but.
Are those the porta potties?
It's the porta potties, and they recycle even waste into fertilizer, and it's very interesting. They also do the VIP sort of solutions. I also saw they're getting into more where they have public restrooms, almost like a building. So that's a very interesting one. Praxis is a medical software company for pharmacies. Brightwater Tools is also a type of waste recycling company.
We're a long ways, so it's wonderful.
No, these are great solutions to add to the whole circular economy so that we're utilizing this to better, for better uses. Nut-free chocolates, it goes without saying. And Green Sea Systems, a very interesting company in Richmond. They do underwater robotics to diffuse mines and amongst other things. But so that's just a sampling of what we've been able to do.
Very technologies. I love the fact that we're not using just green.
Yes.
What in the they are.
The small, I think it's miniature, small solar solutions. So.
Right.
Yeah, and some of these came out of UVM, some not, so it's a good array. It's great for us to get involved in that. Some of the recent VITA commercial investments were in the AC Hotel in Burlington. We're in the Bennington High redevelopment, Farmer and Lavelle Cafe in Woodstock, for Jen's Animal Hospital, Landgrove Inn, Essex Resort, and there are a number of different reasons and developments. I think Landgrove was a change of, a purchase, a change of ownership. And at Essex, it was a solar project, and of course, the relocation and expansion of a child care center.
And of course, in Woodstock, Farmer and Lavelle, the best crawlers in the state. So this is a must visit.
Yes. So that's just a sampling. So why do we want to lend to commercial housing projects? And we'll put that in as commercial because we're not talking about individual homes or single family homes. We're talking about 5+ family unit housing. And so I said we participate with commercial banks, and usually commercial banks use the commercial real estate portfolio is where these multi-unit housing developments fall. It's not in the residential side of the business. So we're able to lend and participate with those commercial banks, except expressly stated in statute, except for housing. So what we want to do is change that. Why do we want to change that? Well, there's a serious supply shortage, right, across the entire income spectrum, not just on income restricted housing, but there are doctors that need to be hired and nurses and engineers for data. They're not going to qualify for most of the income restricted housing that is getting developed. We're an economic development authority. We're created to help the economy, and the economy right now, both in this job and in my prior job, that's all business owners would talk about, is the need for housing and how that was a hampering effect on the workforce recruitment. So, yeah.
Thomas.
VHFA does this, yes?
So VHFA does it. I think that they do, they are worried about that if you fund some of these higher income things, that somehow the rents will all get higher. That is, their stance is that they usually keep control over the rents that a developer could charge. And Maura, I'm sure, will be in to tell you more about this. So our role is sort of like, well, that's fine, but what if a developer doesn't want to work with VHFA? Maybe they could work with VITA. What if a development isn't even including VHFA because the income restriction is the last thing on their mind? Maura may not participate in it. So the language that we proposed would give deference in cases where VHFA and VITA could be the lender, that if VHFA doesn't want to play in that role, that we could then participate. We have similar language for the senior housing, like we did a Wake Robin, the last expansion, because VHFA didn't want to play in that market. So we're giving deference and sort of kind of right of first refusal, but the idea would be if the deal didn't get done, that's units that won't get developed.
Right.
And so this is just to continue to add to the supply.
So, and before Thomas asks his next question, this is commercial and more market rate housing, not necessarily affordable housing.
It's not necessarily affordable housing. I do think that that's covered very well. So there's some examples, like we went to the LIAC meeting of Treasurer Pichek, and there were 3 transactions that I don't believe HFA is currently playing. And one is the Ride Your Bike development at Hula, the other is Winston Prouty in Brattleboro, and the other is the Rutland Hotel project. And I think it's predominantly, the hotel project has market rate housing, and I don't think they want to play in it, so.
So they don't want to, it's not that they can't, it's just they are.
It's not that they can't, they're primarily focused on the affordable side, but I know that they're trying to get into the middle income, and they do. It's just really, we've heard from some developers that they're not working with the HFA, so it's like, all right, well, it's probably still a gap, like.
Here's a gap. So we all know that we have our target of 7,500 new housing units a year. I asked the Housing Brain Trust this summer, I said, so, as we look at state dollars, how many of those 7,500 units probably need to be affordable housing units? How many of them are going to need state money and investment and nonprofit investment? And came back with, from the HFA, 4,000 of those 7,500 units are probably appropriately supported by state dollars and state incentives. And so there's our gap. There's 3,500 homes a year that we need to be building either market rate or commercial rate, whatever. And so you're proposing that this would be an additional lender to help get some of that thing going.
Exactly right. And it's just really expanding on the capability that we have on the commercial real estate portfolios of the banks. And then also the way we worded it was, we're not going after these individually. This is only if the bank wants us in. The same way we work with all the other commercial transactions. We're not competing with the banks. The banks may need us in, for whatever reason. There might be concentration limits or what have you. If they ask us in, we'd like the opportunity to be able to participate.
What would you say to anybody that from the outside would ask, why would we have 2 quasi-state funded or associated entities performing the same service?
Well, I think if you looked at the portfolio of the HFA, I'm not sure they're doing that many market rate. I would argue and say,
the same service.
yeah, it's not really the same service. It's taking care of the low to moderate income, some middle market, but there is this upper end that is not being tended to. So I would say, and we won't duplicate, it's just only if they don't want to do the deal. If they could do the deal, if they could do every deal, great, we're not needed. But there's no harm in having the capability so that we're not restricted from doing it, so that we continue to, this feeling of abundance, that there are more lenders rather than less.
That's,
And you-
we're in a housing crisis. No harm if we can add more entities that are able to lend, particularly to different projects. Okay.
Right.
Well, I guess you would always raise the question, that for every additional lender you have, a particular group of lenders who are aiming to some extent at the same market, that's duplication. And there's overhead costs, isn't it?
Yeah, there's lots of
Add one
lenders in the
lender
market,
that-
yeah.
That would do everything. You don't need 2, 3, or 4 CFOs or CDOs and so on, which is what we have. We have this drip effect
Mm.
of, we can create yet another entity. It's sort of like we do with school systems, isn't it?
Yeah, we don't need to create another entity. I guess from the way we're viewing it, it's just expansion of the commercial real estate lending.
Which they already do,
Yeah,
it's just an expansion.
so it's not encroaching on anyone's particular territory. We're not competing with banks. We're not competing with VHFA. If they want in, we're not needed. Great, we're not needed. Same way that we're doing on the senior housing and the assisted living.
Okay.
Maybe
So-
compete with one another, prices would go down.
Well, there's that. There's nothing wrong with competition. I mean, yeah. I mean, there are many banks in this market as well, so. So I think I reviewed in banking world, multifamily, 5+ are commercial projects. We are commercial lenders. We already have the necessary staff and expertise. And we're in a very strong balance sheet situation. By virtue of the fact that we did get some of the federal money and we've been able to rotate that and revolve that. So, yeah, so I think that we're well positioned to do it. It doesn't result in automatic loan approval. I did hear some testimony saying, well, the only loans that we turn down are loans that are not penciling out. We're not going to just automatically approve loans just to fill a gap. We still have to underwrite. We would vet each proposal and determine the viability of the project. We have capital of our own and, yeah. Just make sure. The other thing that's on the horizon is this chip-related commercial housing and infrastructure. So as an example, if that spurs more development as intended, and those are majority housing projects, we would not be able to play in that. So that seems like a shame, right? Again, if VHFA could do all of it, great, have at it. But let's be there so that we could make sure that projects that are not going to get funded through VHFA, at least we could figure out whether or not it makes sense for us to lend. Yeah, so the thought is, look, if housing is economic development and we're not able to lend to this piece of the commercial real estate market, we're not doing all that we can to help. Everywhere I went this summer when I came on board, we toured all the, banks, and they just kept asking, why can't you lend? Why can't you lend? Because they're working on a number of commercial real estate projects. It doesn't force anybody to work with us either. It's just like in this market right now, when we fund industrial development or other commercial development, the bank uses us at their discretion. We're not in there saying, oh yeah, you've got to work with us. It's the bank asks us in. Mascoma, Community National, all of these banks will ask us in. If they don't need us, they won't ask us in. If they could fund it all themselves, great. So the language that we propose is really after consultation with and deference to the Vermont Housing Finance Agency on applications that are eligible for financing from both the authority and the agency, financing for multi-unit 5+ housing developments jointly financed with another lender or lenders when requested by said lender. So it's really just to have that capability to participate.
This is the addition
This is what we have
asked of us
correct to include in the housing.
to put into our.
Yes. Yeah, the more capital from an ED lender could help create more housing. Our competitive rates right now, they're pretty competitive. It's easier for multifamily commercial projects. We all know that these projects are way expensive. Having another lender could help fill gaps.
ED being economic development.
Yes, yeah, sir. So that is simply the ask. I don't know, we've heard, a variety of claims about it, allowing Vita into the market somehow makes the housing more expensive. I would argue not doing a project makes housing more expensive because of the scarcity continues. That Vita, we borrow money, and some of that money that we borrow is backed by the moral obligation of the state, but it's not for all of the money that we borrow. So we are in a very strong position. We've heard others say, well, you'd have to increase your moral no, not necessarily. And, we're not going to just say, okay, we're going to do 100 million. We're going to monitor this because we need to balance housing with all the other requests for our capital.
Questions, Thomas?
So you don't see yourself as taking projects away from VHFA. You see this as grabbing or offering more opportunities for all housing projects across the spectrum to have access to capital.
Correct.
So you
Additive.
don't see this as additive, okay?
Yeah, additive,
Okay.
not zero sum,
Yeah.
just additive. Like here's another lender that could participate in a multi-unit housing development.
Right, and as I said, the 7,500 housing units, new housing units, we need to be developing here, at least from VHFA's calculation, 3,500 of them are market rate or, commercial or market rate housing that this would be appropriate for. And the 4,000 are still needed to be affordable and would be VHFA appropriate. Yeah. David, did you have a question?
Great. How does this sound to you all?
I think it's something for us to consider as we put together our committee, our housing bill. We'll probably use the Acacia's bill once it gets introduced. We're going to be looking at that next week. And we will be using it as sort of probably our basis for our committee bill.
Okay.
And I'm very open.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The presentation had all of this in it, so there's a copy, and I'm happy to.
Yep, it's right there.
answer
We
any
have a
questions.
copy of it. Right. Any other questions? Great. This was terrific. This was and what are some of your priorities for Vita, independent of this? Which I understand, but what else, as you have taken over the reins, what else are?
So immediately, we hired Christine and Guglielmi to do more outreach and communication because we can't assume that everyone knows about Vita, even though we have a pretty good referral system in place and people seem to hear about us. So more about promotion of our services. The other is, of course, be able to lend to housing. And then we're going to investigate the possibility of lending to some of the VC-backed entities. So some of these VC-backed entities aren't yet, venture capital-backed entities aren't quite ready for the banking market. It's a different risk profile, much higher risk. We're looking into how we could participate in those so that we could grow the balance sheet, but also really take a role in some of these scalable opportunities, right? Like these businesses may grow into, the next Beta, right? Or hiring hundreds of employees, and that could change the
That would
face
be
of
such
the
a
economy.
great
So it's like
addition.
we would want to be in early to do that. So those are some of the things that the other thing we're asking for at the legislature is more of an administrative thing. We were just at Senate Ag there to merge the Vermont Agricultural Credit Corp into Vita. Right now we have a separate entity. So it's just administrative work and for not very much value add. So we're still committed to our agricultural portfolio, just that we want it all to be one entity, part of Vita. Just another subchapter of our Vita statute.
Great. Any other questions? No, I think
All good?
this is a good and additive add.
Wonderful.
And
Thank you.
lovely to meet Jennifer and
Everybody, okay.
Christine. Lovely to meet you and welcome aboard. Great,
Great, thank you so much.
thank you. And
Yeah, any questions? Happy to.
we will be back in touch as we continue our work on that bill.
Thank you.
And so, committee, we have Tom Sheeny coming at 11:20. So, why don't we take a break for 10 minutes and we'll be back at 11:20 when Tom arrives. I would have, I'll take a break, go offline. And, you kind of fill out our